Hello, I'm your host, Jim McClean. Welcome back to another episode of Banterflix, where each week we chat about some of the movies you should be watching, or some shows you should check out online, and maybe the odd one you might want to avoid. Let's see what we'll be talking about tonight. We'll review both 500 Miles, starring Bill Nighy and Claire Dunne, along with the latest must-see horror movie, Obsession, which are both out in the cinemas now. And we'll wrap up as we chat about To Kill A Mockingbird, which has been screened at the Nerve Centre in Derry, Londonderry, as we continue to showcase local events here in NI. So that's what we've lined up for you this week. Joining me in the studio here in Belfast this evening is the lovely Meban.
Lovely to see you.
And Bainbridge.
Hey, Jim.
Hello to you both. Great to have you back in the studio. Let's move on. We have a packed show, and let's kick things off by talking about some movie news.
James Bond. License to Kill. History of violence. I could be speaking to my own reflection. Only your skills die with your body. Mine will survive long after I'm gone.
History isn't kind to men who play God.
So that's a look at No Time to Die. Feels like a lifetime ago since we last had Daniel Craig with his Walter PPK driving about in his Aston Martin. And now Amazon have their hands from the Broccoli's on the Bond franchise, and they have confirmed in recent weeks that casting for the next 007 has begun. We know that Denis Villeneuve will be behind the camera. Alan, I will start with you. 2021 was No Time to Die. Bond's going to be back. We've had that weird kind of series on Amazon Prime with Brian Cox, the kind of reality show. I'll not talk too much about those. Everything that's been in the news of late.
It's fictional.
But Bond is going to be back. We knew, as always, Bond will return. We know, maybe surprisingly so, given the events of the end of the last film. But are you excited? Have you anyone in mind that you would like to see, or any thoughts around this as we get an opportunity to revamp, revitalise, I guess, restart and re-kick the Bond franchise?
Or bury it, as Amazon MGM Studios might do, I suspect. If they do what they've done to Lord of the Rings, when they kind of took over the franchise, the second season of The Rings of Power.
But we know there's going to be a third.
It comes out in November, and the second one, for me, kind of like killed it dead. The first season was kind of okay, but so I worry about what Amazon will do, even though they have good people involved, necessarily from outside of their world, but they're very commercial. They're going to want something that actually brings them in money or hooks people for a long time.
And what's going to bring in money other than James Bond?
But Bond for a long time has been it's been a cinematic thing. It's been I've literally sat in a movie house with all the Aston Martin owners in Northern Ireland, and there were a lot of them. One of them turned to me and said, "What model do you drive?" And I said, "A Toyota Aygo." And he turned away and didn't speak to me for the rest of the time.
Understandably so.
That was probably the first Daniel Craig. So it would just be interesting to see. I don't really mind who plays it. The main problem, I think, is the fact that it has to be Bond-esque. It has to be not too serious. It has to not be Mission Impossible, but it has to kind of achieve that kind of style. And I'm not sure that Amazon are the same as the Broccoli's and knowing inherently what's good and what's bad.
Well, we are going to have to wait and see. I am sitting here as someone who loves James Bond, grew up with it in my household, my gateway drug was Sean Connery at home, and then kind of been introduced to the Roger Moore, very much the campy Roger Moore, the classic eyebrow, which should have got a supporting actor award, and Timothy Dalton, that kind of very brief but great
Forgettable.
Alan. Very brief but great tenure. And then
it's like your favourite Doctor Who. There's the one that was your gateway drug, that was Tom Baker for me, but actually the one that I really liked was Peter Davison, and then we all grew up. And I still like Doctor Who, but there's never been one quite like it.
Alan, we only have 20 minutes. Let us not get into discussion. We haven't got your thoughts yet, Emily, because Alan and I just started almost going into kind of fisticuffs.
Yes, you got into a fight.
But where are you winning? Are you still excited by Bond 007 in 2026.
I would love it if they just went back and found a little bit more of the classic sort of early 2000s Pierce Brosnan, James Bond that I loved. I love the campness. I love that kind of
The invisible Aston Martin, Madonna popping up.
The tongue-in-cheek, a pen of Alan Cumming, just like the most tension spinning around.
I am invincible.
Exactly. Bring back camp Russian accents by Scottish actors. That's where I want to do. Either that or put it in 8-bit and make it
when
Goldeneye.
a Scottish actor is playing a Russian villain, you know it's going to be good.
It should be, yeah. For my picks, though, I'm bringing back the old controversy. Female James Bond and make it Aubrey Plaza.
Ooh.
I think that would be fantastic.
I would be on for that. You're talking to Alan Atomic Blonde Meban. I mean, he is someone that loves that franchise, and anytime I get a chance to bring it up. And I know technically, going back to No Time to Die, we kind of had a workaround with that. We had a female 007. We didn't necessarily have a female. We didn't have, I guess, the term would be Jane Bond, if that's what we want to go with. But I'm excited. I guess we're not going to agree completely here. As they promise, as I've already mentioned in the closing credits of each film, James Bond will return, and we're going to have to wait and see what it's like until then. But for now, let's move on and talk about some movies that are out now.
I miss you so much, and your beautiful boys. Charlie! Woo! You have no idea how sorry I am.
Don't have a bit to say.
No, I won't ever be safe.
You're here now. It's okay.
Okay, we're doing something slightly different this week. We have our guests in the studio. You've each seen different films. All will be revealed, I guess, why in just a moment why. But first up is, we've just had a trailer of 500 Miles with the ever-watchable Bill Nighy and absolutely fabulous Claire Dunne. And we should give a shout out as well to Maisie Williams as well, who's in there.
Is good.
Alan, you have seen this.
I was sent to see this.
You were sent to see this. The reason being that our other film that we're discussing this week is a horror movie, and I don't know. I feel bad.
And you feel that I'm a wimp and don't do horror, and I hate horror unless it's funny.
Yes, I
and
feel bad sending you to horror films, and I saw the poster and the trailer for this,
And you knew my love of Bill Nighy.
and I
would go
said
to the
to
end of the
my-
world to see him.
I said to myself, Al, if ever there was a film designed for the lovely Alan Meban and myself, this would be it. So, the advertising campaign for Dingle starts here. What did you think of the film?
The film was a bit disappointing, if I give away my top line early. It starts off as kind of quite... I mean, it's one of those films that I shouldn't like because it is planes, trains and automobiles. There's a kind of a mad cop, in this case, escape from Sheffield to get to Dingle. Planes, trains, well, no planes, but ferries and various things. So that normally annoys me, that kind of travel urgency and making stupid mistakes that we all see coming, and then having to live with the consequences. I hate that. I blame Clockwise and John Cleese for it. As a child, I've never enjoyed those films, and it really winds me up. However, this is a film that, without giving it away, there is a huge handbrake turn. There is an emotional stabbing of the audience about 20 minutes from the end, and you will weep buckets. I mean, the floor will need mopped in the cinemas.
Did you cry on?
Yes, and ugly tears, because that bit is so much better done than the rest of the film, and it turns out to be something. Yes, it's been a film a bit about grief. We have a granny with dementia kind of in the background and things as well. It's a film about, I suppose, a little bit about trust, but also it's a film that was kind of made badly in the first hour and a bit, and then made well in the last 20. There is no night time in this journey. You can get from Sheffield to Dingle, and it never gets dark. It's very weird. The train is more than twice as fast as the car.
And there's a horse. Don't forget, there's a horse. Alan.
There is a horse, and the horse is a great moment. But yeah, if Maisie Williams wasn't in it as a kind of a fellow traveller who has an estrangement in her own family as well as the core players, we wouldn't have had half the movie. But it is kind of quite twee, and it needed a better written. I think that probably the dialogue would fix a lot of things, and occasionally letting people sleep for 3 seconds would have just been. It's like a film where nobody goes to the toilet because nobody eats, because that doesn't happen. Well, these ones don't sleep, and the time stops.
Okay,
Does that convince me that I enjoyed the film? Bill Nighy's good in it, but
Well, look, Bill Nighy is good in this. There is a journey. There's several journeys in this film. Also, I should point out there's several journeys on where parts of Ireland Bill Nighy's accent is going, because at some point it's a bit, Northern Ireland. It's a bit,
quite nondescript.
It is.
It wasn't
there.
annoying. I didn't find it annoying. I expected that. He's a good enough actor that he managed to do a vague Irish accent.
I will happily watch Bill Nighy read the phone book to me. If anyone still uses the phone book in this digital age, we also have the likes of Claire Dunne, who I just think is an amazing actor as well. This is a perfect film for a wet Sunday.
Two brothers travelling. There is something about it.
Okay.
There's a sense to it, but it's just it's kind of unnerving as you go through it. You kind of go, oh, that's a wee bit weird. That's a wee bit weird. There are too many things that jar, and
there are just, for me, as I think I come back to, there's points where I just don't think work, and it is based on a book, so I'm wondering maybe has that process of adapting it from screen to the screenplay to the screen, has something been lost? Maybe sometimes something works on paper better, or Kindle, whatever you're going to
stay too close to the book, which can afford not to have evenings.
We are
turn a page.
We are going to have to move on. We're going to move on to the film that both Emmy and I have seen. As they say, something completely different. That is Obsession, the latest horror film that is one of number recently of must-see horror movies at the cinema. Emmy, you and I have seen this. We're going to wait to see if we can sell Alan on it. But before we do, let's have a look at the trailer.
One wish, Willow. You only get one wish. I wish Nikki Freeman loved me more than anyone in the entire world.
I love you so much. A love only the branch of a willow tree could conjure.
It's weird how you two are dating all of a sudden. Like, super dating.
Someone who loves horror, very much intrigued by this. We have our couple of sorts. We have Nighy and we have Bear. And Bear is that Ross Geller, Ted Mosby, the nice guy who thinks he's the nice guy. He just hasn't quite worked up the courage to ask the girl of his dreams out. Rather than have the courage to ask the girl of his dreams out, he makes a wish with One Wish Willow for Nighy to love him more than anyone else in the world. And things very quickly get pretty intense. Emmy, what did you think?
The most horrific thing about this for me was the secondhand embarrassment I felt throughout the entire thing. It was so awkward and so depraved in its attempts to be anything. No, I'll tell you what I really think now. Yes. I did not care for it a lot. I felt like on paper it sounds really fun and interesting as a concept. It's kind of there's a little bit of the changeling myth in there. There's like a classic very 80s nostalgia style. Oh, it's a random gift from a spooky shop and there's a thing that's going to happen. Very big
When will
vibes.
people learn?
Yes. Don't mess with things that you buy in shops that smell of incense. It's not a good idea, especially if you're trying to take people's free will away accidentally. But yeah, I felt it was for me, the performances really took me out of it. And I couldn't tell if it was intentional with some of the acting choices and even with the story drive. I was like, it felt like a TikTok short that had been dragged out to a full-length feature.
How horrific was it? Not
very. There were some great, don't get me wrong, there were some very good moments in there, and I thought that the body horror practical was very good, and I thought that was very well done. But for me, I felt like the female characters especially were very underdeveloped and then very much used just for kind of being hot bodies and device. There's a particular scene that I'm thinking of where something very graphic happens and then there's just a very gratuitous shot that didn't necessarily need to be there. Some of the choices, I thought the snaps in and out of her reality were quite well done, but unfortunately, I just felt that the acting wasn't strong enough to carry it, which made me and my friend who was with me go like this a lot. Oh, no, oh, stop. And it wasn't at anything that was great, but it was just at the emotional conversations. And it did feel a little bit like, I'm a nice guy, this is a nice guy film. And then even the ending, which I won't spoil, you're like, I feel like you're supposed to be on his side a little bit, and I was absolutely not.
Listen, everything you say, I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I would admit that I think in terms of the film's finale, yes, our central character Bear does think of himself as the nice guy, and he's just, oh, why won't she love me? As I say, the kind of Ross Geller, the Ted Mosby stereotypes we've seen before, mostly in sitcoms. Oh, why won't they love me? And they think they are endearing. They think they are kind of, as I say, the nice guys, but they are passive-aggressive. They are manipulative in what they want to do. And I don't think by the time this film resolves itself, you're meant to think of Bear as the nice guy. It's trying to do clever things with that idea of the nice guy stereotype. And as much as this guy thinks he's the nice guy, he's not.
I think you can absolutely see that. For me, I just wish the writing had pushed it a little bit more. Because there was times where I was like, oh, it's like almost satire in some of the moments. And it's like, it was almost there for me in terms of like being like kind of a black, bleak look. But then it just didn't push it far enough for me. I can see this in kind of maybe 10 or 15 years, me revisiting this and being maybe slightly warmer to it, as kind of looking at it like a B movie, kind of cult horror type of feel. But at this moment in time, I think it was just a little bit too tropey for me. And as I said, the female characters were too underdeveloped because there's the, is it Stevie's the friend? And she had the potential to like really turn it on its head. But then there's one specific moment where the whole film got ruined for me, which is the text messaging of like, oh, I have so much important stuff to tell you. Come and meet me. And then you meet up. And then I was like, you can text me. But when they do meet up, she doesn't tell him a thing. She doesn't say anything. I'm just like, well, the urgency is gone. So I think her character could have been if her character had been maybe a little bit more in touch and a little bit stronger, for the feminist in me, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But yes, I think the Nighy characterizations were very well done. I just think I think the only other thing I would say is that if that had ramped up a little bit slower, I think it went from 0 to 100 real quick.
And it sounds like the kind of thing I could have quite happily have sat through if you had indicated. But no, it seems like a missed opportunity because I think the on paper the 2-sentence version of the thing is kind of quite interesting.
Well, Alan, it may have been a missed opportunity, but at least you got to see Bill Nighy in Dingle with an Irish accent. So who is
Maisie
the
Williams
winner?
playing a little ukulele?
I mean, I will say Andy Richter was very good. He has a little small cameo as the dad, so maybe that could sell you.
There are a few films that are all bad.
Yeah. Well, look, we will leave the cinematic section of the show and we will agree to disagree, I think, on both of our films. We're going to move on, wrap up this week's show. And as always, we like to showcase local events that are going on here in Northern Ireland. This week we are moving to Derry, Londonderry with the Foyle Film Festival, who are screening To Kill a Mockingbird as part of their Real Lives programme at the Nerve Centre. Let's have a look at the trailer.
What are you going to give me?
There's a pearl necklace. There's a ring that belonged to your mother. You want to tell us what really happened?
I got something to say. And if you ain't gonna do nothing about it, then you're just a bunch of lousy, yellow, stinking cowards!
I don't know how much needs to be said about the film itself. A bona fide classic. I know the stage play is currently, or has been on tour throughout the UK. I think it is now settling in West End. It was recently here in Belfast. I got to see it. I was surprised, Alan. I thought you might have, but you didn't.
This is my first time actually having anything to do with To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay.
Because at school, GCSE English, we did, instead of Harper Lee, it was Laurie Lee, so we did Cider with Rosie. This is new to me. The story's not new, but
I vividly remember learning this, I think for GCSE,
yes.
Possibly. I think for my GCSE, I remember having to write a lot about Atticus Finch and kind of how much of a hero he was on the page. And then, of course, we get to see Gregory Peck. That, iconic. That white suit, that look, that sequence, that scene in the courtroom later on, that speech in the defence. But yes, as I say, we are pushed for time. So Alan, this is a first time viewing for you. Emmy, was this first time viewing for yourself?
No, I saw this back in GCSE when we all got to watch it.
When the teacher decided they'd had enough, rolled in the television, why read the book when you can watch this series, when you can watch the movie? I am surprised. To my knowledge, I don't think this has been remade. I don't think what you would expect in this remake culture, that a series, but the film, 1962, Robert Millen classic. Alan, this is your first time viewing. What did you think?
I found it interesting. I'm not sure how many other films of that kind of era, kind of early 60s, would have been made from a child's perspective. Now, they do cheat quite a lot. So Scout is largely kind of through Scout, but sometimes then it becomes what the brother sees, sometimes it's what Scout sees. And they need to be in the room, effectively, for us to be able to see what's happening. It does a lot of that. It's kind of quite interesting because Scout is quite naive, but then also quite older beyond her years in terms of how she challenges racism at one point. Then there's a whole kind of second act. We get into the court, and it becomes a very kind of courtroom drama, except it does dissolves to kind of jump forward in time. So there's no closing. The prosecution don't have a closing speech. We just have the defense closing speech, and it's all done with a very cheap-looking kind of dissolve between one bit and the other, and that's kind of odd. And then we go back to the kind of child perspective for the ending, and it made me think there's another film out at the moment, Hen, probably still on the QFT, which basically follows a chicken, and it's a chicken's perspective on people trafficking, and literally there is a chicken, 8 of them had to play the part, who walks around, and a lot of the angles are low, and it's kind of taking a different perspective to tell a story. So it felt kind of quite novel that in 1962 somebody had done this as a film. I know the book is there, but that they'd actually kept it going. But then they did it quite sparingly. Sometimes they kind of skipped it, and it was quite slow. I found it quite tense. So I paused at various points. I was watching it on the streaming service and made cups of tea and things because it was just getting a wee bit too much for me. And I can but this is a black and white thing that it's really it ambles along. There are no jump cuts really. In this. I mean, the no jump scares in this. It kind of goes, but it was tense. I liked it. I mean, I should like it. It's a great film. It should be in people's lists.
Yeah, Oscar-winning film. Shock horror from this week's episode. Alan Meban likes To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, but it is also quite dated, and it is very much of its time.
Yeah.
And there's no film today, even made black and white, that would pretend to be anything like that style, I think.
Then are you surprised? And I've already alluded to it, that this hasn't been remade. I guess it's up there with the likes of It's a Wonderful Life. It would be sacrilege to remake. I mean, the ghost of Gregory Peck is
going to come back and haunt you if you try and do anything with it. You could do a sequel or a prequel or something, but yeah, and it was very much of its age. It could do with a second screen kind of thing that's actually telling you that this was still in 1962. This was a film that was released when segregation was still legal in most states in America. So I missed all of this in English. I didn't get the history of it, but that's actually quite shocking when you start to kind of have a cup of tea on pause and go, ooh, this isn't looking back in time. This is actually telling people what it's like today. Yeah. That makes it worse.
I think so. And I think one of the big criticisms of To Kill a Mockingbird is that, Atticus Finch is it's the start of the white savior movement in film. And that might be fair comment, but again, I'm a big proprietor of it. Context is so important. And if you imagine, as you said, going to see this in Texas, where segregation is still very heavily part of everyday life, and to see this kind of a film and to see this all-American, very manly man.
All white men. I mean, the judge, the jury,
everybody,
but
particularly Gregory Peck, who's this big action, big hero of the everyman, defending and having faith in the justice system. And trying his best, and I think it would be pause for thought, especially because, in Kennedy's America, this would have been an insane watch, and I think that's very important to bear in mind, remembering the history of where it's come from, and again, just even in terms of as you said earlier, just very quickly in terms of innovative filmmaking, it's one of the first films that forced perspective. There's a lot of upshot. There's a lot of forcing you to see this world from a child's point of view, and I think that's what makes it such a special film, is that it's not just a straight inline 16:9 shot. It tries to do interesting things to tell this story, and again, if you read the book, it's such a perspective bending read that you kind of need that level of filmmaking to bring that across.
Yes, it is. Looking back at it, I mean, having studied at GCS, because weird most of the time when people are forced is not probably not the right, to read a book or watch a film as part of a class, they watch it so much and look into it, the last thing they ever want to do is revisit it. I hadn't watched this in a long time. I saw the stage play, as I mentioned, in the Opera House, which does again do interesting things about how it's trying to use the idea of the child's perspective throughout, and is much more focused on the courtroom aspect.
Yeah.
Having rewatched the film, I was surprised at how much of the first half is all about that and sense of childlike innocence, and how then that is shattered by the realization that there is evil in this world, and they are forced to confront this. And yet still, I come here as a fan of Gregory Peck, as someone who watched the film when I was younger, studied it, as we've already mentioned, GCSE, still think it's well worth a watch. Depressingly, still in 2026, the themes that are there are still, in some areas of this world and some parts of America, still very much relevant. We will not talk too much about the current incumbent of the White House. Let's leave that to Slugger O'Toole. And yes, as I say, well worth a watch. On 13th of June, that's screened at the Nerve Centre as part of the Foyle Film Festival Real Lives programme. Emmy, we are nearly out of time, but as someone who's with Accidental Theatre, you have your own film club. I know we've showcased that before and we've had you on the show before. What have you got lined up for us that will excite our viewers?
Yes, so Never Seen It Film Club are on our last two films of this season, which is our political animation season. So if you're watching this before the 31st of May, you can come along and see The Plague Dogs. I'm very sorry to anybody who's coming to see it, because you will need a big box of tissues. It will depress, and I'm very sorry. And if you're watching after that, our next film is the 28th of June, and we're showing Wolf Workers at Gaelica, which I'm very excited about. Brilliant animation studio straight out of Ireland. So that's what's coming up on Never Seen a Film Club.
And if you want to find out tickets,
accidentaltheatre.co.uk.
Perfect plug to end the show. So all that's left for me to do now is thank my guests. Thank you very much, Alan.
Not at all.
Thank you very much, Emmy.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks very much for watching at home. We'll be back next week with another episode. But for now, until then, goodbye.